All right. And we are live. Welcome to the weekly BrainDrive development call live stream. We do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we'd love it if you join us live here or over on our community forums at community.braindrive.ai, where we post the recordings once they're done processing. Our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. I'm Dave Waring, and I handle the operations side here at BrainDrive.
And I'm Dave Jones, and I handle the technical aspects here at BrainDrive.
Great. So BrainDrive is an MIT licensed open source self-hosted AI system that is designed to be that superior alternative to big tech AI systems like ChatGPT. It looks very similar and functions very similar to ChatGPT, but with a huge difference, which is you own and control everything. You can host it wherever you want it, including in the cloud or on your own computer. And you can even run it if you want complete privacy without any internet connection using local and open source AI models for full AI system ownership. So we have the free and open source AI platform called BrainDrive at braindrive.ai. You can go and install that for Mac and Windows with our one-click installer. Or if you're on Linux or prefer the command line, we have instructions there as well for that. We have our community over at community.braindrive.ai, where you can communicate with both Dave and I and other BrainDrive owners because at BrainDrive, you're not a user, you're an owner. And that also means you're not the product when you're using our AI system. So we'd love it if you try out the system. Let us know. We're early in our build, but we have a great foundation laid. It's a modular platform, so you can develop and launch your own plugins and deploy those wherever you want. So it's completely customizable, and it's built for your not only ownership, but also your freedom and control. So we have the community, as I said, over at community.braindrive.ai, and then our doc site over at docs.braindrive.ai. So check us out there. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave to update us on the development progress from last week.
Well, so far, last week was mostly just, I guess, all things library. Uh, Dave has been using, the other Dave, has been using a library process for probably over a month now, I figure. It's been a while. And he's taken from what he's read. He's asked me about how I manage my design document directory that I have in development, what it does and all like that. I thought he was going to get in with development with it, but he ended up actually taking it and going with an entire, uh, we'll call it a second brain type library or a garden. Because that's where our acronym is kind of has been floating with becoming a gardener. You're getting fruit from your garden type things and making it work for you. um, so
Yeah,
it's
context garden.
yeah, exactly. And we've adopted it into several other things as well. But we're going with that, I guess, that analogy right now, for growing it. We'll keep with it. So with me getting involved, I of course want to try really hard to use local models. Because I see some really incredible things coming from the local models that surprisingly will not come from state-of-the-art models controlled by big tech, as we say it. There's some new learning techniques for models, and coming out of MIT last week was one where the model itself it runs a little slower, but it actually learns as you're doing. So instead of having to go through an entire retraining process, which it costs money, you have intensive CPU usage and things like that, it sacrifices a little slower in the moment, but it actually learns what it should be doing. And I think these are the kind of things that'll be really good for when you're doing library or tool calling, because if it gets it wrong, it can learn and then train itself to this is what right looks like. Which as I've been playing with my own little library this weekend and trying to get it to behave correctly, because I'm not on state of the art, I'm on a local model. That's the challenge is I had to stop almost coding for a while this weekend. In fact, this weekend on BrainDrive was a no code so I can go into Monday coding, but was more of a, hey, I'm going to ask you to do one process 15 different ways. What works, what doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, take note of it. And so I can reapproach these prompts so that when I say, hey, what tasks do you have for me? Do I have any tasks that are set up and like that, that it responds correctly with the right thing? If it notices an issue, it can start to help correct it and let you know, hey, I think I see a problem here. Maybe you might want to look into this, because these are things that I'm starting to see come alive as we're working on our library. And then, of course, because they're two separate things, the library piece is its own MCP server. So if anybody wanted to borrow it, they could. If you wanted to play with it on your own set of code, you could do that. There's nothing stopping you. As with most things in BrainDrive, it's open source. Have fun with it with an MIT license. So it's that ability to make the library work so that no matter what you do over here, be it BrainDrive, Think Tank, or whatever, or even just a small script, you want to use OpenClaw with it, go right ahead. There's nothing stopping you. So that is really the process of me playing with it, learning it, mostly learning the stumbling blocks of it as an open source model versus I know Claude and Codex or OpenAI type models will chew through it. They'll do great. They've got to work with those. I mean, that's what they're meant to do. So I think the open source is where the value would be, because then it doesn't matter where you're at, what type of connection you have. You could be at Dave and I have been talking last week. You might be on a phone at some point with BrainDrive and no connection. If you live in Vermont, you would know what that's like with no connection, because half our state has no connection. And
So
so
for those people that are new to BrainDrive and library and all of these terms and context gardening, et cetera, what's the 3 or 4 sentence overview of what's happening here?
you your garden, your library, your second brain is basically in a human legible form everything you want it to know that you do not have the capacity to take care of in your own brain, because we all forget stuff. I mean, heck, that's why your wives have honeydew lists. It's because we forget to do them, so we need a list to go look at. Your second brain should almost be that, but for everything. If, such as like I'm playing with the finance page, and I want to be able to say, hey, normal person, I'd like to be able to save an extra $50 next week in my savings account. So I should be able to tell, hey, BrainDrive, I have a task for you, or I want a task. I want to tell you, I want to save $50 for over the next week. So one, it should record it. Two, I should be able to list it anytime. What tasks do I have for, upcoming that I need to be aware of? Um, I should be able to say, hey, I heard of a new term, or I want to get a better interest rate on my credit card. I don't have time to talk about it right now. So put a task for us to talk about it later. And so that I can go in on like Monday and say, like I did this morning, was say, what tasks do I have this week? And it pops up, hey, you want to save $50 by the end of the week in your savings account. And don't forget, we have this conversation that we want to have on savings account stuff and like that. And that's the first entity of your library coming alive. The second part is when it gets proactive. I want to see it when I load the screen and
All right,
it
this is
pops.
this is good, but that's a lot more than 5 sentences.
Okay. Yeah. When I start this library thing, it's like when I start to play with it, in a sense, it's almost like a game engine, because it's like this thing needs to come alive. It needs to meet you
Right.
halfway.
But we
But
need people to, yeah. And at
yeah.
first, amazing, love it, awesome. Obviously, as the
I live in the
architect,
forest too much. I know
yeah,
that.
as the architect of all this, you need to understand all the different moving pieces, not only that exist now, but that we want to exist in the future. But I think,
It's
you
your
know,
AI partner. That's my
it's
if this thing has to
and
be your
why are people doing this? Why do we think this is a good idea, and why do we think we can do it now?
because okay, the models are getting there, number one, but and also the information overload is there to a point where nobody can retain or any of this. So we need that bridge to agents. So it knows us. It knows what we like. It knows what we don't like. I can tell it, say, hey, you can do what, so we get to that point where we have agents moving now. We can set parameters based on our personality, what we're willing to share, not share, and it becomes the basement level of that foundation of my agents are going to do whatever. That's coming. I mean, it's already here. So your garden becomes your rules and the knowledge you're willing to share, not share.
Okay. So, we're new to this like everybody else. We're learning as we go
Yep.
here. But, the vision for BrainDrive has always been your AI is your personal AI system,
Yep.
and it's going to get to know you. And in the future, it's going to be able to take action on your behalf, and it's going to be able to be an economic participant on your behalf. And, the better that this AI system gets to know you and your workflows and the value that you can deliver to the world in partnership with AI, the better off you're going to be. And you want to own and control that and not have that owned and controlled by big tech. And that is important for your freedom individually in the digital world and soon the physical world.
Hmm.
But also, it's important for societally, that it's individuals that are capturing the value of this powerful technology, and it's not all just flowing to a bunch of big tech companies that are basically locking us in and extracting from us because we're using big tech AI systems, and they're the ones that are getting to know us, and they're the ones that are personalizing, and they're the ones that are acting on our behalf. They're the ones that are going to benefit instead of us.
Yes.
So this has always been a vision for BrainDrive. It's just here a lot faster than I think anyone was expecting. And we've had memory projects going on and personalization projects going on since the beginning
Hmm.
of Brain Drive, but we just never could really get it all to work. And so what's changed now is these agentic systems like Claude Code, like Codex, and like the local models that have tool calling and agentic capabilities are very good at organizing and crawling information in a file system.
Yep.
And it's not that no one knew that this was a thing, but how far you can go with an AI that can organize, edit, crawl, organize, update, etc. in a file system, just folders and
Yep.
subfolders and markdown files that are human readable within those files, I think is way beyond at least what we were
Yeah.
expecting, and from what I'm seeing in the market now, way beyond what most people, even
Yeah.
at the state-of-the-art labs, were thinking was
Yep.
going to be possible. So this is, taken memory and personalization from something that Dave and I thought we were going to have to build towards over the long term to something that's possible today. The
To
technology
a
is
point, it was
there.
a shift of priority, even. It was for
Yeah.
us because, like, we've always sat there. You even named the second brain, initially, that's how the focus was there. But now it's like instead of being that long target now, it's now sitting on our front plate going, we need to address these
Yeah.
shortcomings now.
And this is amazing,
Yep.
because it allows your brain drive as Dave builds out this functionality to become very personalized and very useful beyond, just private, et cetera, but actually being able to really help and guide you in a very personalized way throughout your life so that, it's you that's flourishing instead of you helping a big tech company
Yep.
flourish with your data and information, et cetera. And I think this flourishing and individual flourishing is something that's really missing from the um, discourse right now because everybody's so super hyper aware, which is great that these big tech companies do not have our best interest in mind.
Yeah.
And the incentives just aren't aligned, that way. So this is amazing on all fronts. And we really want to package this personalization up in a way that gives people a big head start in leveraging a personal AI system that gets to know them and gets to help them very uniquely. And, my brain drive in this way is going to be very different from Dave's brain drive and your brain drive because it's going to be different context, just like we don't think about things exactly the same way. We don't have the same familial situations, friends, location, all those types of things. So this is really going to allow Brain Drive to really be that second brain. It seems to be the terminology that people are uniting around, which is good for us from a brand
Yeah.
standpoint. And be personalized. And so the foundation of this is very simply just a file system and with markdown files in it that's well organized around the areas of your life that you care about and that you want help flourishing in. And that's going to be different for everyone. But we do believe there are some foundational things that are kind of the same for everyone. Finances, career, health,
Yep.
these types of things, to-do list management, that type of stuff. So we really want to give people this library set up
Hmm.
and then as much as possible help them manage their library to help them or help you as a BrainDrive owner flourish in these specific areas, not as even like these are the areas we think you should flourish in, but like so you can sort of get the gist of how
Yep.
this system works. And then you can really apply this mechanism to any portion of your life that you want to leverage AI to help you with. And this is going to be amazing because there are so many amazing things about AI and how it can help you flourish as an individual person. That you don't have to worry about it being extracted away from you, if you own and control it. So I think that this is really going to be amazing. It's
Hmm.
really the long-term vision of Brain Drive is now possible today, which is really exciting. And that's what Dave's working
Yep.
on. And so with that, now take us into the ground level of technically how is all this going to work?
Well, I'm purposely avoiding the state of the art models. I'll be upfront, everybody. I know they can do it. They can do it so easily, it's ridiculous. It's like you can almost half guess what you can say, hey, tell me about finances, and it already just based on everything else and how smart the model is, pulls in some inferencing together, and before you know it, it's telling you about yourself, and you're like, I didn't tell you this stuff like
Right.
that.
And this is when he says state of the art models, you're talking about API based models, which we do allow.
Yep,
You have the freedom to
yep,
run in BrainDrive, the OpenAI models, the Anthropic models. They can do this right now, is what
yep.
Dave's saying. But he's saying, I'm avoiding this for now.
On
Why are
purpose,
you avoiding it for now?
okay, for that very same reason. And I'm going to use Facebook as the example because they've been around for a while and everybody knows. I mean, I use Facebook so little, it's ridiculous. But let's just say relationships. It tells me when people's birthdays are. It's like they already know me to that level. They know when birthday are coming. Valentine's Day, it knows I have a wife. It's telling me flower orders, those kind of things. So they're already making money off me because every time I see an ad, of course, and it's like Valentine's, oh, I better do flowers. It's like they understand the chain of information, how it affects people. And so they're there already. But if we can take some of that back, that's why we have a relationships tab in our structure of what we're looking to offer originally. If I just say, hey, these are the birthdays of the people that I care about, I don't get hit ads now. I just get hit with reminders that, hey, you have a friend whose birthday is coming up. So instead of it being buried in three different sales ads or stuff like that, it's now just, hey, this is yours to control. It is your life. I'm just here to help you manage the information so you know what's important, you know the priorities, and the models are there because, like, I use Granite and a certain quant of that, which is for anybody who's doing the tech stuff, it's an 8. Uh, it can do the tool calling. We just have to figure out the prompts and the magic to what it wants to know so it can give you the information that you need to have.
And we want to, as much as possible, give you the option to own all pieces of your AI system. And that's including the interface, the models,
Yep.
the embedding models, the tool calling models, the databases,
Yep.
everything. We're not saying you have to run them locally
Nope.
with BrainDrive, but the fact that you can is a huge deal for anyone who's interested, who's into crypto. It's like you may have some of your crypto in a internet connected Coinbase or whatever, but the
Yep.
fact that you can always self-host your crypto is a big deal in terms of the freedom and the ownership and the empowerment. And we think the same thing is going to be true with AI systems. So Dave's been very adamant about building everything so it works always locally whenever possible, so that you can always have that ownership and control. And another thing that's great about this is we know if we can get it working with local models that it'll be amazing with any sort of
That's what I
API
was
based
going.
model.
The reverse is you if you have something working with Claude or OpenAI models and like that, it will go backwards.
Right.
Anything that you've done the diligence to get right on a local level will instantly fly going higher. But the reverse isn't true. Just because it works on Claude, it will not work on a local model. Your
Yes.
prompt will be insufficient every
And
time.
you're not limited to APIs from closed source providers.
Yep.
There's all sorts of a spectrum here where hey, I don't want to use a big tech model, but like there's an open source model that I just need a more powerful hosting for.
Yep,
And there's providers that focus on just that hosting. And there, the incentives are a lot more aligned because they're not harvesting your data and trying to lock you into some
yep.
interface. Their whole thing is just like, we host models. Like, that's what we do. So there's a whole spectrum here that opens up. But if we can, always be in line with, that user ownership
Mhm.
across all points of potential centralization in the stack, that's a huge deal. And Dave's been very adamant about that. And I think he's right.
Because you look at OpenClaw is almost a great example of this. When it was originally developed, the developer used Claude, and that was his focus. That I mean, that was the original model that he was picking from. And so this thing did wild things that nobody could believe, but it was dependent. And so when it got released and people said, "Okay, I want to use the Llama on this," and so they gave the Llama providers so they can do it because it was rather open and code modular architecture as well. All of a sudden it wasn't as good. I mean, what they got because it was designed for this model. So if they would have designed for Llama and say, hey, this will work on a Llama 8, great. You knew it would have flew on a Claude. So it's just
Yeah.
instead of tripping ourselves and going with the state of the art models first, we'll work locally, we'll get this ironed out, and then this experience only gets better by how far out you reach. And that'll be dependent upon the owner of it, not
And
somebody
you
else or
saw the leader of the OpenClaw project just joined OpenAI,
yes, they did. They were offered by Meta and OpenAI as well.
which
I'm not
is,
sure.
okay, great. It's like now the number one open source project, the guy's working for the people that we're supposed to be the counter to.
Yep, exactly. See, that's what happened. It's like
Which is surprising that no one's pushing that out, but whatever,
yeah.
that no one's pointing that out, but whatever.
Well, it just
Um,
came out. I mean, all the news feeds just kind of grasped onto that within the last weekend. It was like first there was an approach to purchase it, and
yeah,
I do not know if it got purchased, but I do know he accepted a job at OpenAI,
which is
and
at that level basically the same thing.
yeah,
But anyway, back to brain drive.
yep,
So, what would be a good, I think we've touched on the big picture
yep.
here. Like, what would be a good use of our time for the rest of the call?
Um, I could go with many things. I probably want to go with though right now because of where my brain is, our conversation was, we are an AI project. We have always envisioned when we started with AI being more employees than just us two. And that's where we're hitting that marker in the sand of when we started this AI could only really at best be a junior programmer. And so it was designed with, hey, I will do the heavy lifting and where I can farm out to a junior programmer, I did. And it allowed us to expedite code. Comparably a year ago, we were doing amazing. But now in December, everything has changed of what these models can do, what they can replace, and how they can expand. But your project has to be ready for it.
Right.
And if it isn't, I see it's like I see a lot of projects going to fail on this in the fact of they were human coded so much so that in order for the AI to get involved, you're going to bog it down with all your context that you have in there that was unnecessary. Whereas if you build your project from the ground up with AI being the forefront of it, and I don't want to say being the lead developer, but its hands have got to be in there from the word go. You are going to end up with a very different project. It's going to be leaner, faster, smoother, because AIs are working at PhD levels now. And humans make mistakes where an AI context window can get unfathomable if you keep it under a threshold. You won't keep up with it. Just accept it. So we have been, especially since December, they picked up. Dave and I agreed more workers on this project. Let's take a team of one. And instead of going for 1 to 2 and 3, let's go for 6, 7, 8. What happens when you get that kind of group together? What could be the difference in a project? And of course, me having to learn something that Dave says very easily, I have to be able to learn to throw code away. It has no value anymore. And as a coder, that kind of hurts my feelings because it's like I got 3 decades of your code is your value.
Okay.
But he's
So
right.
it sounds like what we're saying here is, we've spent a lot of time talking about automating as much of the development process as we can so that we can scale the open source project. And we believe that this is going to be important for any project, but especially an open source project that is trying to remain independent and does not want to raise venture capital and have all the perverse incentives come into the project, at least at this stage, and be able to keep the project open and functioning without having to need huge amounts of capital, um, you know, it's almost mandatory, right? And
Yeah.
that's awesome for our project, right? So
Yeah.
it sounds like you want to talk more about specifically what we're doing there, or is it just like, hey,
I can even go specifically. Because when we developed BrainDrive, we did the same thing that every development project does. You have to have a dose of reality and make concessions. Sure, you could put everything on the wall. We want to do all of this, but you have to look, okay, we only have one guy sitting over here with two junior AI like that. So everything isn't on the table. You have to go, okay, we want this. We want a plug-in architecture system so that us and users can develop whatever we want. At the time, we were very text heavy, chat based heavy. Now we're looking at voice. It's almost like a 50-50. That ability to talk is amazing and instrumental because we're going to get it's like as fast as December came for coding, it's going to get there even faster for I think for the voice of being able to instantly on the go. I'm driving. Here's my work on this for me. Do this research for
okay,
me.
so
Oh,
again, this is great. I'm excited about it, but I want to dial in this call
yeah. Okay.
specifically, right?
Yep.
I think there's three things we can talk about, okay?
Okay.
The first is I know you've spent a lot of time working on the second brain
Oh
concept, and
yeah.
we can
Yep.
talk about the progress that you've made
Okay.
on
We.
that so
Yep.
far. Hold on, there's three
Yep.
things we could simply talk about. The second thing is we spent a lot of time talking about and working on automating development.
Yep.
That's the second thing we could talk about. And the third thing is like we've sort of reoriented our roadmap around the second brain concept, right?
Yep.
So I think you spent the most time last week working on the second brain.
Yep.
So even if you're not ready to demo that today, I think just talking about what you've been working on, where the struggles have been, that would kind of be my preference, but I'll leave it to you to
No, no,
decide.
no. That we can go there because I can address both the struggles and the successes of that.
Right. So
Uh,
let me
yep.
set this up.
Okay.
So this is the BrainDrive library project, and this is the file system, and this is the agentic capability from BrainDrive to interact with that file system
Hmm.
so that it can help you, bring context in from that library. So for example, if you're using BrainDrive to manage your personal
Yep.
finances, it will know that. It will know what your portfolio looks like. It will know your budgeting challenges, etc. And it will tailor its advice to you based on
Yep.
that. And that could be for anything, right?
Yes.
Any topic, right?
Yes.
Um, so that's what we're working to build out and
Yep.
have some defaults in there for people so that you can sort of get started and you can get over that cold start process, but eventually just be able to create whatever you want in
Yep.
terms of personalized expertise that's helping you with life domains or projects or career or whatever.
Yeah. The biggest struggle is really coming down to the consistency. I can show you. It may not do what I want. I'll be blunt. I've been
Well,
having.
before you show
Okay.
it,
Yep.
what are the components? Like, what do we already have,
Okay.
and what do we have to change because of this shift in strategy?
Okay. Currently we have an MCP server that manages our library. And what it mainly deals with is two capacities. Is first of all, Markdown. It knows our structure that we like, and that's how a your life projects are managed. What the documents are inside it, what each document means. Each area also has an interview process with the main topics that we've selected, just more so you can get a feel for the system, and we know everybody has them. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is great.
Yeah.
Going back to our context gardening analogy,
Yep.
you can have a dirt plot, right?
Yep.
That's BrainDrive is ready for you to plant your own seeds and go garden,
Yep.
right? But because this is new to everyone, including us, we're trying to give some sort of default experience. And this would be like, hey, if you want to plant squash, here's a bag of seeds, and here's the instructions on how deep to bury those, how often to water it, how much sun it should get,
Yep.
that type of thing. We're trying to give you, and corn is a whole different thing, and here's how you should think about that, right? And
Yep.
so we're trying to give some defaults, and you can grow this initial garden, and then you can say, you know what? I just want a completely new garden. You wipe it all out, you start fresh. Or you say, hey, they don't, BrainDrive doesn't has corn, squash, and peas, but it doesn't have strawberries. So I'm going to create a
Yep.
strawberry, packet and the seeds and the, growing techniques around that, right?
But
And
also,
then the
oh,
sec,
but
yeah, and then the last thing I'll say is, and it's not just planting, it's also watering, it's weeding.
yeah,
That's like getting rid of old information, updating it with new information, et cetera. And this is the gardening process. And you can do that all yourself in any way that you want, but we also want to give some techniques around this and also some automation around this that helps this context garden grow and get better and better at helping you the more you use it.
yeah, because the same we give you. I think there's three or five we have right now that when this thing installs, you'll have pages already set up. You will have the back end all set up for you to go. And the reason for me, I like the five number better is because when you say, hey, I want an area for my garden to be on RC cars. We have the structure in place for the AI to go, okay, I need to build an RC car area for you. Let me do, let it do its little magic. And it says, okay, these are the prompts that I really need to hone in on the information. Now, these are the information I need to know about RC cars. So it'll ask
Right.
you, do you own an RC car? What kind is it? And so that when it says, okay, I'm ready to interact with you about RC cars, it already has some information there. You guys already have a working relationship of you can say, hey, do you want me to collect a parts list for that car XYZ? And you can say, well, I have a helicopter. And it says, well, great. I can go find out about helicopters too. Be-
Right.
because the agent, the first part I want to work on with adding agentic capabilities to it isn't rushing out to go buy you something. It's rushing out to go give you information to fulfill the knowledge gaps. And so that when you have a conversation about it, it's not worried about whether it's a small model or not. It'll be grounded in context and it can facilitate by say, I've already looked this up for you.
Yeah,
Eh,
and let me just say the exact same thing in
Yeah,
different words. Um, you know, Going back to our garden analogy, one of the things that we've discovered is like a garden, there's some differences between different crops, right? In this case, different personal finance or RC cars or a project that you want to work on. But all of these things require some of the same things. So in
yep,
the garden, that would be you need dirt,
yep,
you need a seed, you need sunlight, and you need water, right?
yep,
As an example, right? And what we found is through using this library ourselves, this process of, okay, let me start an interview to find out what it is that you actually want to do, whether it's personal finances and me and the AI helping you manage your personal finances or manage your RC car hobby. It's the same interview process, not the same questions, but you need the AI to speak with you to really understand what is it that you're looking to do because Dave's personal financial situation is different than mine.
mhm,
And if I was into RC cars, I might be into a whole different genre or subset of RC cars and think about RC cars very differently than Dave
yep,
does, right? But both of us, by the AI interviewing us, we'll get to know and be able to personalize how we want to think about our personal finances with AI and what's specific to us in terms of financial stability and obligations and portfolio size and those types of things. Or on the RC car hobby side, what cars are we into? What cars do we already have? What
yep.
cars are we looking to acquire? Why are we looking to acquire those cars? That's the same exact process. It's a very different interview, very different questions that evolve as you go through,
Yep.
but it's the same process in terms of start with an interview.
And I'd like to see the interview process, right? While initially it'll be, hey, I have these questions for you and all like that. But as it gets to know you, I'd love to see it chime in and go, hey, I have some additional questions based on something we talked about. So it can always be developing a more personal relationship with you, get to
Right,
know you. And so it's like, hey, it's like I was researching this. Are you interested in helicopters?
right.
You know,
Or it might say, hey, I know you're working with your wife to try and rein in your spending here. Are you sure you actually want to go for that
there,
helicopter RC? Or
and
maybe
that's
we
where you
should.
get the finance page and the RC page, because let me
Right,
assure you, everybody has a hobby that has strings attached that your partner has say so over.
right. And we would call this
Yep,
cross-pollination in
yep.
terms of the garden
Yep.
concept,
And
right?
that's where it's
Is
like if you're on the finance page and like I said, I have a savings and all like that, and I'm telling it there. So when I start moving on RC cars, when it does the initial, okay, here's your RC car information, it takes a step back and it looks at all the projects, what are going to be related. And of course, it's like I gotta buy this, finance is involved. And it's like, hey, Dave, you're trying to save money over here. This may not be the best project for you to take
right.
on right now
Yeah.
because it won't be counterintuitive for
Or
your
like,
savings.
here's a less expensive version of
Yep.
the thing that might get you the same boost for your collection or
Yep.
whatever,
I,
right?
I did a search at eBay. I found these three parts half price.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like that
Right.
those are, like I said, the ages don't have to be all about spending money. It could be about just finding the information that you need in a moment to make a better decision.
And you get this compounding effect when all of this is in one system instead of spread out across a bunch of different systems.
Yep.
And this is the opportunity and the danger, right? Because that compounding effect is going to be very powerful. Just like having an executive assistant that knows everything about you is going to be way more powerful than having an executive assistant that's still really smart but knows nothing about you. Same thing is going to be true here with these AI models. And that's very powerful, but that's the lock-in that big tech is going to go
Yep.
for. And that's the key that BrainDrive is giving you is that's all under your ownership and control, and you have the key to it. And that's a really big deal.
Yeah, because this type of information will be like what Salesforce does. Salesforce has all your sales information, your customers, what you've done in the past, your relationships, and you can't move.
Right,
Literally, they know it too. He's
right,
made $1 billion over one concept, not sales, but the fact that you cannot move. That
right,
guarantees him a check. So
right.
this will be your personal life, except for it'll be wherever you want.
Right. So we have this interview process.
Yep,
We're going to have a spec document, which is basically like this is after the interview. It's
yep,
like this is your personal financial situation. Here's all the different things. Here's what you're looking to accomplish. Here's the advice we've discussed. Here's the tasks around this,
yep,
right? And then that's going to go into a build plan, which is like, here's how we're going to execute all of this together, right? And so
yep.
those are the three, interview, spec, and build plan. And for any of our project managers out there, you'll recognize this because that's spec-driven development applied to all areas of
Yep.
life. And I think that this is a good practice just for an individual to have to really define what it is that you actually really want based on your unique situation, outline that into a specification to make sure it's clear. Like we did this interview, you said these things. This is what that looks like. Go back and forth on that a little bit. And now here's how we're going to execute it, right?
Yep.
But when you get an AI involved, that puts that whole process on steroids. And this is what's going to allow individuals to ride the AI wave and not get left behind it. It's going to allow you to partner with the AI to make you more powerful instead of extracting power from you.
Yeah, so that's why this weekend was like almost in that regard a no code weekend besides Valentine's Day. And if I got caught coding too much, I'd have been dead. But it was more of a let me just periodically, it was like stop by the computer. I could ask questions of the library system in purpose to make it fail. Because that's the key thing is reaching that point of failure to know where the weak points are so that I can walk into Monday after we get to this call and go, okay, let's take what we've learned over 2 days and now turn it into reality because there are,
Okay. So it sounds like you're actually using something that's not there yet, but you are starting to play with something.
yep,
Is that right? Oh,
yes,
can you show
yes.
that?
Um, hey, well, we'll hope it works because I did. There's a lot of points of
Yeah.
failure. I
Yeah.
got no problem with that one. Okay, you can see my brain drive screen.
Yes.
Okay, just for navigation purposes, so people realize what we're doing, when you install the library system, it will auto-populate these pages for you, the finances, fitness, relationship, and career. These may change, of course, when we get to a release version. Um, Dave will see these, and I know I think I had three originally, and Dave was like, "No, we need these." But I took these from the spec doc that we were working from at the time, and it said, "Hey, this is what Dave wanted." So I was like, "Hey, give Dave what he wants." In that regard, it made it simple. There was no argument. And the reason for this for me right now is the AI chat page. I want it to be clean, and this is where you go for your general chats and stuff like that. You can the library is exposed, you can interact with it. But on this is where you can have just a normal AI conversation. And if you want to push it somewhere, the code will be in there so that you can say, hey, this was a really good conversation, but it belongs in my finance library because I was doing research about interest rate and how they really work. And now I have a better understanding. I want to save it. So you'll have the capability of having a conversation and then dumping it. But as far as it primary is the ability to have a conversation with any AI. So you could have a conversation with OpenAI models, Anthropic models, state of the art, get the best information possible, then dump it into your personal one. And that way it's like they don't have your information, but you now leverage theirs and put it into your bank or your garden. We'll put it that way. When you get down to this level, this is where, okay, it automatically is tied to a finances document center library, whatever you want to call it, but it's basically a directory and it has a few established files like Dave was talking about. It has the agents file, it has a spec file, it has a build file.
And this
Uh,
file system is living on your local
yep,
computer in the normal places where files live, wherever your text files live. We
yep.
put it in the BrainDrive folder so that we can isolate, the BrainDrive library and all this agentic capability in one place so you know when you're working with it and it's not just crawling all over your computer like OpenClaw does.
And for further isolation, because we will eventually be a multi-user system, like with the databases and everything like that, and plugins, I already have it isolated to the user. So there will be no so when we say, hey, we've tested everything, it's working great for multi-user, you let your wife on, and all of a sudden she's in your library. That's not what's going to happen unless you share it with her. What's going to happen is she'll have her own, you'll have your own, and there'll be no cross-pollination right there unless you allow it.
Okay, so
Uh,
I'm on my finances
yep.
page.
We're
And
going
if this is gonna work correctly, let's just describe what would happen
okay.
in case it doesn't. And
I
that's basically you are now interacting with
Yep.
the finances folder on your local computer,
Yep.
right? And that finances folder has an agents.md file in it, it sounded like you
Yep.
said.
Yep.
And that tells the AI what's in this folder and what is this folder designed to do. These are the documents that are in here. Maybe here's the next tasks that are involved if you've been using it, things such as this, right?
Yep. I've already been through the interview process with it. It asked me, I believe, 5 questions for the end. I didn't want it bogged down, so I really put a little ceiling on that.
Yeah.
And I have been using it to say, hey, I'm trying to save money. I'd like to talk about saving money and interest rates and things like that with my bank, and those kind of things to see how it is. I want something done, so it has to store the information for me. But more importantly, it also has to give me this information back. And I have to be able to, because not everybody's me. That's where the model has to be smart enough to go, I'm looking for this context to know I want to give you this, or I'm taking this and
Okay.
doing something with it.
So,
And
and
that,
this is a big addition to BrainDrive because before it was just model, text in, text
yep,
out with a persona maybe where you can tell it to talk like a pirate or whatever sophisticated way you want it to respond to you.
yep,
Beyond that, now we're talking about, okay, this brain drive is now interacting with the file system on your local computer within this brain drive
yep,
folder. So it's
yep,
not going all over your computer,
correct.
just in the brain drive library folder that's installed,
Yep.
right?
It doesn't even see other BrainDrive files. It's only the folder where your documents are existing for the garden. That's it.
Great. And so that's number one is we have to create that library when brain drive is installed.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
And then number two, we have to give you a way to interact with it. That's our page system.
Yep.
And then number three, once you do start interacting with it, it needs to be able to agentically write, edit, delete,
Yep.
update, etc., the files in that. And that's the piece that I think where most of the work is happening, correct?
Yes, yeah, that is, and that's separate of BrainDrive. That is what's called the library service, and it's an MCP server with probably, I think there's like 45 different tools that are inside it that the AI has at its disposal for writing, editing, doing so in a minimal manner, so it uses differences versus the entire file. So if you had like any one of these files are going to become large. And when you want to add, remove, edit, take information away, we have to deal with it in chunks. So this is
And
where,
that service is running also locally on your
yep.
computer.
And it uses the Granite for out of IBM, their model to handle that tool calling.
So
And
there's
so,
now the model that you're talking with,
yep,
and then there's the model, maybe we call that the librarian model,
yep,
which is, the deciding, using this service to decide where is information going, what are we editing, what are we updating, what are we deleting, all that type of
yep.
stuff. What are we pulling back into the context? And that's the Granite model, which is a default that is also running locally on your computer, but also something that if you're a developer right now, you can update it in the future. Dave will give you this setting so you can change that model if
Yep.
you so
Yeah,
wish, right?
it's in a config file so that if somebody wanted to change it, it's not hard coded anywhere. Have at it, do what you want. You know, your mileage will vary, of course, but you can do it. There's nothing stopping you.
Right.
That's I try to code everything like that, where I know you're going to want to change it, so I'm just going to make it possible from the
Then
word
that's our
go.
freedom pillar,
Yep.
right? We want you to have the freedom to use the system however you want, although we are going to have some strong opinions on what the defaults are.
Now, right now, the model and I are arguing over some core concepts, goals, and tasks. I can't get it to behave right now. Like it was just that's why I took a learning weekend of number one, what's the difference between a goal and a task? But number two, to always respond when you see them. And because sometimes it wants to give you the other, and then sometimes it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So it's part of the, when you're trying to deal with prompts for the original time, or the initial time, is there's a lot of hammering them out to get them right and perfect so they behave. Because that's what you're doing. You're basically like a kid. You're telling it to behave, and you want consistent behavior, not just don't eat that now, but not ever. Those kind of things. So if I did, let's see, what's good. Do I have any goals? Now, when I type this 50-50 right now, maybe a little less, it should tell me my interview progress, not just where I'm at in finance, but it'll also look out, see if there's any goals that I haven't completed otherwise, because we do have like that cross-pollination aspect. So that for finance to really get involved on date night, or can I pay for a gym membership, you have to do those interviews over there. So when I ask it, do I have any goals? One of the first things it's doing is saying, hey, let me check your interview status so that we can get those out. And if I can't get interview status right yet, then I know I don't even worry about the other places. So I've kind of started there. So we'll see what it's going to do for me. I have no idea what this thing does. Oh, see, it didn't know what a goal was, so it went over to find tasks because I was in the finance one, and it said, "Hey, I wanted to save $50 by next Friday." And that's like I said, that's that get into that teaching it, and we're trying to figure out the right words that it's going to see before it engages in certain tools.
Okay, and what is currently in the finance? If you go to the finances folder, what is in that folder right now?
Let's see, what do I currently have in my finance folder? And I need to projects user. There's my user. Life, career, finances. Okay, I have right now an interview, and I've already done all my interview. I have goals, I have agents, and I have action plan. I haven't changed over to the format that we were adopting simply because I'm trying to get what knowledge I have to work where I want it to, and then when I get there, then I can easily maneuver to the agents, the specs, and the build. And I'm trying, and then the goals, I think that might be the hiccup right now. So that's why I took the weekend and did a learning exercise so that I could start really figuring it out without having to learn while doing. And
Okay,
by learning,
and
I mean learning how it's behaving because every AI is kind of different
okay,
in that.
so how how this folder system is structured
Hmm.
and what information is in there is the starting point for everything,
Yep.
right? So before even even if we have Claude, even if we have the best of the best, top performing AI model,
Hmm.
if there's nothing in that finance folder when I say, what are my finance goals?
Yep.
It's not going to be able to answer that question, right?
Correct.
So to me, the information that's in that folder is like the most important thing.
I agree completely.
Okay.
That,
All right. So so then I break that apart, right? So there's what's the process that we're guiding people
mhm.
through to get information into that folder,
Yep.
right? There is what is the model and the process and the technological steps, et cetera, and models that we're using, et cetera, to get the right information into that folder. And then there is the querying and the updating and all of that, which does not necessarily have to be the same thing. So let me give you an example. I know it's better if it is the same thing, but even if I had to fill out the interview by hand myself,
Hmm.
right? That's a one time, and that got me to the point where I could then leverage the information that's in that interview process with my AI. That's obviously not ideal, and that's not the end state we want to be at.
Yep.
But as a starting point, if it gets me a much better library, I would view that as like same thing, going back to the garden analogy, right?
Yep.
You got to get your hands dirty first. You know what I mean? But if
Yep.
you want to be a gardener, right? So I'm just planting a idea
Yep.
here that, as you start to work on this, you know, that's number one. The
Yep.
second thing is going back to what we said at the beginning of the call is there's a spectrum here, right? There's this only works with state of the art models, and there's this works with like a 1B, like that can run on a Raspberry Pi or a phone
Yep.
or whatever. Like that's the spectrum. Anywhere we can get closer to this,
Yep.
every step, is an advantage, right? And so it may be that, um, you know, initially we cannot get this to work well with a model that's going to run locally on the average person's laptop. But once we start to get up into the 70B plus range, which is, you really do need professional grade
Yeah.
hardware to run that type of model, it does start to work, right? And to me, because that avoids the lock-in component, which is the biggest piece of
Yep.
this from my perspective, because if I'm using a 70B open source model that's popular, I can go to 80 different hosts, you know what I
Yep.
mean, that'll run that model for me. I could even spin up my own server to run
Yep.
that model, right? That's a huge advantage over state of the art.
I,
Um,
can I
yeah,
stop right there for 1 second?
yeah,
I do think because when I was designing this, it was me and the AI going back and forth and kind of separate of how yours work in a big case. And I do believe that is the flaw, is how this is structured. That's why I was like, I wanted to take a few days of playing with it, find all the weak points, find all the failure points. I wanted it to fail without me coding because then I get bogged in the back and forth instead of just watching the behavior.
yeah,
The method you described is something that I, through my research, found that most AIs are trained on. So the fact is, I need to go to what you do with the specs and the build. I mean, I already have the agent files, the specs and the build, because there is already a training process so that it knows what these are. And I think the tool calling will improve. And that's why I was like, I wanted to take a few days of just playing, find the fail points so that I can figure out when I do go to code, I'm coding something that's going to put me forward
right.
versus the back and forth.
And then the other thing that I just want to highlight again is the creation of the spec and the build plan, in
Yep.
my mind, is pretty different from the actual management of that and the use of it in your day to day.
Hmm.
And so it may be that you use one model, like you have to use the more powerful model for the creation, but
Yep.
not for the day to day. Another example of this would be like, okay, if you don't want to use the state of the art model, then you're going to have to go through more of like a form, like it's a specific set of questions
Yep.
that everyone answers versus a dynamic set. there's all sorts of ways that I think we can get to where we want to go faster
Yep.
without sacrificing the ability to do this locally.
Yep. No, because I've already, like I said, I was like, instead of just filling out by hand, I've thought about, hey, when you initially start up, instead of using the AI to guide you through questions and it facilitate having them in there, it'll pop up a small form like we've done. Where like I'll show, let's see, go here, bump. Oh wait, how did I? Oh, I forget how I did things. I've been playing with this so long.
Uh,
Um, How did I do that? Okay, well, never mind. Anyway, I had a form that pops up when I want to create a new project file. I forget how I did it. And where the form comes up and it guides you through it rather than you just using talk to it methodology. The interview might be the same process where the interview will pop up a form and it'll say, "Hey, I have a few questions to give you. Give me you provide the answers right here in the form. It'll make sure they get written down, and that way your garden, whatever the topic is, has a more grounded approach and learns about you rather than the hope and pray everything goes right methodology."
Great. All right. I think we're at 10:57. That seems
Yep.
like a good place to leave it here so we don't go over our hour limit here. But as you can see, lots of balls in the air currently. I think we will have like a much more dialed in, like, this is what this is. This
Yep.
is what we're doing. Here's how it works. Let's show it to you for next week. So
Yes.
we're excited to show you that. And like I said at the beginning of the call, our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned AI system to big tech AI systems. We do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, live on YouTube live stream. So we'd love it if you join us for the live stream. It's open to all, and we post the recordings when they're done processing over at our community at community.braindrive.ai. So we'd love it if you'd participate there as well. And with